This is a JBL speaker we're going to refoam for you today. We're going to replace the outer foam surround that you can see has deteriorated. Very common problem with the JBL speakers. Most of the older studio monitors and home hi-fi models use the foam suspension in the construction of the speaker, which over time breaks down and deteriorates, as you see here. We fix and repair a lot of JBL speakers here at the shop at Simply Speakers. We sell repair kits for all of these different models as well that you can find by searching our website, simplyspeakers.com. This particular model uses a 12-inch repair kit. We have a couple variations of this that we'll get into with you later, and we also have 10-inch JBL kits, LE series, which are kind of a thin roll surround that fit a lot of the JBL models out there as well. LE8, very common kind of old vintage model that you'll see out there. LE14 is another one. 2235, LE15, 136A. Several of the 15-inch models require this 15-inch surround kit as well, which again is a special thin roll, specific only for the JBL models that we use here at the shop and sell in the repair kits. The repair kits come with the special glue, come with instructions. Obviously we have the videos that you're watching here on our website as well, which are handy. One note for you on the JBL woofer: this is a 128H model woofer. The white aquaplast coating on the woofer here, you can see the stamp on the back shows the model of the speaker and serial number on here. Yours may or may not have this foil cal stamp, we call that. Other models are just a black, basic black casting on the back without the basically the pretty label, if you will. They make this in another version called the 128H-1, which is the same basic setup here, except it has a black aquaplast coating as opposed to the white JBL aquaplast coating that you see on these popular older 70s models. This was kind of a trademark for JBL back then. This particular model comes out of an L112. That's what this woofer is from, but it was used in a 4411 and a couple other studio monitors out there over the years as well. So it's a common model. Build quality very high, cast aluminum frame, very large magnet, 3-inch edge wound voice coil on this particular speaker. Certainly worth fixing. You can't buy anything like this today that's similar in build quality that works properly in these cabinets, so it's worth holding on to these to fix these with a simple refoaming that's easy to do. When we come back, we'll show you how it's done. Alright, so we're ready to start cleaning on the JBL woofer that we're going to refoam here for you today, show you how to do it. Again, we sell the kits for them, or you can send them in to us and we'll be glad to do them professionally for you here at the shop at Simply Speakers. So what we want to do first is we want to take a look at the gaskets. We have a 4-section gasket here that's glued on top. It's got notches for the 4 screw holes, as you can see. Pretty standard stuff. What we like to do on these is just kind of give you a visual of what's going on here before we start. You'll see that most of the pieces of foam are rotted and come off very easily. On these, because of the white cone, we don't want to stain this up, so we want to keep all of our big pieces of foam kind of off of that. Sometimes they can get a little sticky and can cause some staining on the cone. So we want to try to keep as much of that off of the white cone as possible. If you have the regular cones with the JBLs, you don't need to worry about that so much. But the white aquaplast cones are no longer available from JBL. So it's nice to be able to try to keep these as clean and as original as possible when doing the repairs on them. So we'll pick most of the big pieces off of here and just kind of set them aside, just kind of pinching and grabbing the material here. We'll kind of spin the speaker, which makes it nice. Just kind of work it around. You see me peeling that off of there like that. Excuse me. And that's all we need to really do there. Get a little bit extra on there, kind of shake it a little bit, and the pieces will just kind of fall onto your rag there. Now what we want to do first on this is we want to remove this gasket. So we'll take a utility knife like this, and we'll come in, just pick a point, any point on the speaker. You kind of come in and just kind of work underneath the gasket with your utility knife, just like this. Get a little bit of the old foam grime on there, that's fine. Just kind of peel that off of there. And you see the gasket starting to come up in one piece there. It's actually 4 sections. We've gone around one time on the frame. I like to come back in here like this and just kind of press down with the blade as well, because there's a little adhesive that tends to run into that corner when they manufacture these that holds that gasket on. So what you'll find now is the gasket will come up for you. If you have a little piece that's starting to stick, you can kind of come in and touch that up a little bit. I'll try to move my hand out of the way so the camera can see what we're doing there. Normally you keep your hand over here so if you slip you don't have an accident there with the blade. But here's the first section of the gasket like that. See the back's got a little residue on it. We'll work on cleaning that up here in just a minute. We'll set that aside. This one's still a little stuck on there, so we'll come back in and touch that up as well. Just like this. Alright. Again, same kind of thing there. We'll set that aside. We're going to reuse that later because you can't really get this gasket section separately for the refoam kit. The standard gaskets that are available now are a little bit different design, so it's nice to reuse the original JBL parts whenever possible. So we've set that aside. Again, we got a little bit on the cone. Just kind of shake and tap this off here like that. And it makes a bit of a mess. That's okay, so you're going to want to keep a clean area there. When we come back, we'll show you how to kind of scrape and clean the frame here. We'll get that part done, and then we'll show you how to clean the back foam residue from the cone that you can see through these 4 points in the frame, where I'm pointing here. That will be the key here before we attach the new surround to the cone. We'll be cleaning this area of the back of the cone all the way around, but the first thing we want to do is kind of clean this area. So when we come back, we'll show you that, and then we'll do the cone, and then we'll show you how to set up the new parts. Alright, so we're back. We'll show you how to do the frame here. You see there's a lot of kind of old foam and glue residue along the frame here, and that's what we'll be working on cleaning first. We always clean the frame first, then the cone. Alright, now we've removed the gaskets we showed you earlier in the video, and I just wanted to show you here kind of what's on the back of the gasket. And of course we have a little bit of foam residue and glue on the back gasket to deal with here. And the way I like to kind of deal with those, and I'll kind of move this out of the way just to show you here if the camera can see what's going on here, is we take a little rubbing alcohol. You can also use a lacquer thinner, but rubbing alcohol works fine. Just dampen a folded section of paper towel, nice and wet, and just kind of dampen the edge of this a few times. It's good to do it a couple of times and let the rubbing alcohol kind of soak in to the foam there for you. And what that does is that softens what's left of this old foam residue along the gasket or the back of the gasket here. Once that soaks in for just a moment or two, you see you can take your blade and just kind of scrape that, and you see what's coming up there, and that's the old foam and glue residue coming up off the back of the gasket, and that's what you want there. So we'll just keep our paper towel kind of handy. We'll just kind of scrape that lightly to remove what's left of that old residue there. I've already done the other 4 sections for you, or the other 3 sections, so I just wanted to kind of show you this one section here real quick. There's a little bit of glue residue on the back. We're not really too worried about that. What you want is a nice clean finish here so that when it goes back on the frame, it looks nice and there's no glue or foam showing on the inside of the old gasket section that you removed that we're saving and reusing for this repair. Alright, so we'll put the speaker back into play here now. Same utility knife. Come in, we'll start here, we'll just do a little kind of inside frame scrape, if you will, right in here to cut away any glue and foam that may be hanging on the inside of the frame landing here on the speaker. And that looks pretty good. And we'll come along the outside and kind of set the depth of the blade. It's nice to have one of these adjustable blade units when you're working on these, or you can use a standard type as well. But we like to use these here in the shop. Kind of come in, and you can see we just kind of scrape this up carefully. This is where it's nice to just have an old rag kind of handy to put the material as you're working on it there. So just continue kind of working around the frame here like this. Again, kind of sticky and messy. This is the hard part of the job, really, is just kind of getting the cleaning and prep ready to go on these. See, it's rather sticky here. But that's it. We've gone around the frame one time. We can also take our rubbing alcohol, paper towel, kind of like this, soak that in there. A little rub around like this is kind of nice. If there's any residue there, it'll help kind of remove that. Cleans everything for you as well. Just kind of wiping around with that. And that's what you want right there. And kind of keep the material off the cone on these white cones so we don't have any staining there. And the frame is pretty much prepped and ready to go. When we come back, we'll show you how to clean the back of the cone in preparation for the new parts that we'll install here in just a moment. Alright, so we're back. We've cleaned the entire frame up here for you as we were showing you earlier in the video. Our 4 gasket sections for this JBL speaker are done and ready to go back on. That'll be the last thing we do there. I did want to bring to your attention on this particular model of JBL. This is a 128H. We mentioned that earlier to you. We have a couple of different kit versions we use for this one, and the reason for that is JBL had a couple of different cone suppliers that they used over the years for these, or maybe the same cone vendor that changed the die on the cone. But in some cases, when we measure these cones on these JBLs, and in this particular case, you can see there, it measures 9 3/8 diameter across the center of the cone. The diameter of the cone is 9 3/8. Well, we have one kit that fits that cone perfectly, and then some of these that we get in will have a cone diameter of closer to 9 5/8 to 9 3/4. And when we run into those, we have a different kit that's slightly larger on the inside that we use for those. So it's a good idea to check those before you order kits from us. If you send the speakers to us, it doesn't matter. We always have both parts in stock, so we'll use whichever part is appropriate for you when you send them into the shop here. Okay? But there is a difference in the foam cuts of the 2 different surrounds that are used here, depending on, again, the diameter of this cone being either 9 3/8 or 9 5/8 to 9 3/4, depending on kind of how you measure it there. So take a look at that on the 128H woofers and the 128H-1 woofers. Those are the 2 primary ones that we will see variances on. Even in matched pairs, we sometimes will see a difference from one to the other. Okay, in this case, we have the 9 3/8 inch cone. So we're using the appropriate kit for that. And then the next thing we need to do here, now that the frame is cleaned and the gaskets are cleaned and ready, is we need to clean the back of the cone. You can see here, there's a little foam residue along the back edge of the cone here where the original surround is attached. It's a rear mount foam surround in the case of this JBL as opposed to a front mount. So we need to clean this area here that you can see between the 4 spokes of the frame. So what we'll do first is we'll kind of come in here like this, sharp utility knife with a fresh blade in it. Any of this foam residue that's left, we'll just kind of cut off the edge here just like this. We're not cutting the cone, we're just removing any of the foam residue that's left here kind of in this outer area. Most of it's already been done. I'm just going to run the blade around here one time for you. There's really not a whole lot coming off there. We don't want to dig at that too much. In this case, we'll get most of it from the back side of the cone. Alright, but if there's any foam chunks or pieces that are left around the cone, we want to go ahead and deal with those now. So what we'll do here is we'll take the speaker, we'll flip it over, and on the back side of the cone here again, there's the foam residue that we need to address here. That's where we'll use our rubbing alcohol, paper towels, have a few extra paper towels folded up into little squares like this is helpful. Dampen that or soak that with the rubbing alcohol. Come in like this, kind of run it around the back of the frame. It's a little tricky to get in between the frame spokes there. You kind of have to get in there and work that like this. I like to go all the way around. I'll just spin the speaker for the purposes of showing you this on the camera here, okay, so that I keep in view for you. All right, and you see what's happening here is it turns a darker color because of the action of the rubbing alcohol. And you can see it's starting to lift up here. If you kind of run a fingernail across it, you get some of that right on your finger. What I like to do is flip it back over as well and kind of run this from behind the cone. That way you can get into the corner areas here all the way around. Just kind of lift the cone up if that helps you with one hand. Kind of work this around like this. Get a good soaking on there. You can see the little pieces kind of hitting the cone here like this. So when you see that happening, you want to come in here and just kind of tap that a little bit. If you have a little paintbrush or something, you can kind of wipe that off just lightly so that you don't smear the foam on there and keep the nice white aquaplast coating on the cone. So now that that's had a chance to soak in for a little bit, we can come in here and I'll show you with the utility knife what happens here. We kind of come in like this, and you can see that starts to lift right up around the cone. If the camera angle can see that there. Okay, I'm just kind of lightly working the blade like this. The rubbing alcohol did all the work. The blade just kind of scrapes away the foam residue there, and that's what you want to do all the way around the frame. So this will take about a half an hour, so we'll go ahead and get this part done for you off camera. We'll come back and show you the fitting of the new part and the gluing of the surround, but take your time with this. Use more rubbing alcohol to dampen that if needed, and just kind of lightly scrape that and let those pieces fall away there, and that's what you want to do around the entire diameter of the cone there for the cleaning. Alright, so we got everything cleaned up on the back of the cone as we started to show you there earlier. This is what you want it to look like all the way around. Kind of spin the speaker here for you so you can see the back area of the cone where the old glue residue was located has all been removed. That is a tedious part of this job. It does take a while on these models, so take your time with it. Plan on an hour to get it done, especially if it's your first time doing that. And go ahead and make sure that you have this same look going on all the way around the cone. No more glue residue, and everything is clean. We cleaned the frame for you earlier in the video. We have our gasket sections up here ready to go, and we're ready to do the installation of the surround. So what we want to do here is we'll take the surround. I like to kind of run it through my hands a couple of times like this. Just kind of makes it a little pliable, warms it up a little bit. It's just something I like to do here at the shop. When we do these, it kind of stretches it out a little bit and makes it a little bit easier to work with as well. You don't want to pull it too hard to tear it, of course. And just pick a point on the speaker because this one is a rear mount. So we just kind of lift the cone up like this. We'll pick a point on the cone here to just start kind of working. I have one hand holding the cone up and the other hand working the surround underneath the cone. Alright, so we'll come in here like this, just kind of work it around, just kind of pushing it underneath there. Alright, and as you can see, that's the look that you're kind of looking for there. Just kind of blow that off, get any dust off of it so you guys can see in the camera angle here what we're after. It's not all the way in place yet, but this is just showing you once you get it kind of tucked in under the cone what you're after there. You can kind of come in and pull this up as needed so it's nice and snug all the way around the way it's supposed to be, and this is what you're after here, okay? You can see this can be moved, pulled, and kind of shifted and twist it into position as needed. You're not going to hurt the cone, you're not going to hurt the speaker doing this to do that, okay? And that's what you want. That's the look that you need right there, and this is the first setup on being able to get the surround attached to the back of the cone properly. Show you on the back side kind of what we're looking at here. Of course, there's no glue installed yet, so you can see it's not tight to the cone, but it will be here once we apply the adhesive, and we'll show you how to do that. Which is a little bit tricky, but certainly doable if you take your time and follow our instructions here. But take a look at the back of that. That's what you're looking for there. It's evenly spaced all the way around. When you look at the front, it's raised up all the way around the cone properly, just like this. Okay, and you see me just kind of squeezing it, pulling it away from the cone here just to kind of show you what that looks like there. All right, just like this. Okay, so that's kind of what we're after there. It almost looks like it's done and in place, but obviously we need to glue that. So what we do on this is we'll take the glue that's supplied with your kit. It comes in the metal tube. It's got the small glue nozzle on it. Keep a rag handy. Don't squeeze too hard. It doesn't take much glue. All right, just do a little squeeze there, get a feel for how that kind of works. All right, it's sticky. Gives you a little bit of time to work with it though. It does dry clear, so if you make a little mess here or there, it's easy enough to clean up. Now I like to start right where the lead wires are. Just gives me a guide so that I know that I've gone around the cone one time with the adhesive, okay? And the way to do this is to just kind of, and I'll try to do it in such a way where the camera angle can see here, is I take one hand with my thumb and I just kind of pull the surround away. Again, right here where the lead wires are is my starting point, and I apply my adhesive tip in there just like this. And I'm just squeezing slightly as I run the bead of glue, which is then going right down. Make a little boo-boo there, just wipe that up, not a problem. Okay, start back in the same spot. And that adhesive bead that I'm installing is going right down on the top of the surround and squeezing between the surround and the cone. You can't even see that I've done it, but it is there, all right? And that's the way you want to do that. You lift up the cone here like this and kind of work it again. You'll see if the camera can get in there tight where that wet adhesive is, and it's runny enough so that it just kind of smooths itself out and covers the entire width of the attachment of the foam to the cone on the back side. It's actually a lot easier than you would think to do that. All right, so the glue will start to set up. You can use one hand to lift the cone, run underneath with a finger just like this to press the foam into the glue on the back of the cone is what you're doing here. If it's easier for you, get a coffee stirrer, popsicle stick, something like this that's thinner, and slide that in place and run that around the back of the surround, pressing it up into the back of the cone. The adhesive has already been spread by just the action of the foam and cone being pressed together when you installed it originally. Okay, so this is how we install the surround to the back of the cone. We'll work this for about 10 minutes. We'll check it a couple of times. We'll let it sit for about an hour. And when we're done, we'll come back and we'll do the easy part, which is the gluing of the surround to the speaker frame. Alright, so we allowed the surround that we installed earlier to dry for about an hour to the back of the cone. And what you want to see here when you look on the back of the cone is it's nice and tight to the cone. There's no gaps there around this area. If you have little spots that maybe you didn't apply enough adhesive on, you could always lift those up and apply a little adhesive in those areas with the tip of your glue nozzle. It's long and it's fairly slender, so that would allow you to do that if you needed to. If you do the gluing properly the first time from the front of the cone and get enough of a bead in there, you have a nice tight finish there, just like we're showing all the way around the cone here, and that's what you want. You want to let that set up for about an hour. Okay, so now this is what we have. We have the surround attached to the back of the cone, which is proper for these older model of JBLs, all the way around. And you can see now that the surround is in place here around the cone, that when we press down on the cone, everything kind of centers up very nicely for us. You almost have to push kind of off center to make it to make the coil rub in the magnet gap there. You can kind of hear that as we're doing that when we push off center here. But when we press down centered on the cone like this, it centers up by itself. So it's pretty easy to do. So you want to just kind of check the action of that and get a feel for that before we do any gluing to the frame here. And at this point we're ready to go. We'll go ahead and apply a bead of the same adhesive that comes in your repair kit here. Keep a rag handy for that. We'll apply a 1/8 inch bead of adhesive right in the middle of the frame area here, just like this. You can kind of see, I'll lift it up so the camera can kind of see what's going on here. Just kind of squeeze it gently. If you get a little bit more in certain areas than others, that's fine. But what you want to make sure of is that you have a bead all the way around the frame, just like we're showing here. You can see it. You can see it there. You can see it all the way there. At this point, just press down on the surround, on the outside of the surround like this, and that serves to spread the adhesive. You can see it's spread the adhesive in a nice layer on the frame here, and the more you work it, the more it kind of spreads it out like this. And keep your hands clean, so we keep everything on top of the surround nice and clean like this. This is the look that you want when you're done, so you have a nice clean repair as well as a functioning repair here. I'm just kind of running my hands around this like this. Here and there, as you're kind of working this, you can kind of exercise the cone. You can kind of do a forward, backwards, and side to side kind of feel on it like this. We want to center the cone just like this, and it centers up very easily for us on these. Okay, so we come in like this, just kind of press down again. You'll see the surround kind of lifts a little bit as the glue kind of is not quite dry there yet, but it's starting to tack down at this point. So now we want to kind of check everything again. We don't need to remove the center cap and do the shims here, because we get just as accurate of a centering by the method that I'm showing you here, and this is how we've done them for over 20 years here at the shop, and this is how our customers do them, and they work very well. So don't be nervous about that. You can keep your original JBL dust cap with the original black adhesive look here without changing out any of that part of the cone structure, and that makes for a nice looking repair, and it keeps it original when you're done, which we think is very important. So in this case, you see that it's starting to tack down now. When it kind of lift up on the cone, we got a nice centering there. Everything is moving evenly. No problems there. All right, the surround is starting to tack down on the frame like this. All right, now normally we'll kind of let this sit up and dry for another hour or so is good. In this case, since we're kind of good to go here, I'll just kind of continue along with you instead of stopping the video and coming back, and we'll go ahead and apply our adhesive for the gasket. We have the 4-piece gasket that we removed earlier in the video, you see here with the little notches for the screws. And on the JBLs, we have a screw hole here, 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 and here, and you can kind of see those outside the edge of the foam here. So what we'll do is we'll apply just a very thin bead of adhesive right to the outside edge of the foam here like this. Don't use too much here, just a thin bead is all you need, just gentle squeezing. Use your hand to kind of roll around the frame as a guide. It makes it apply very nicely for you. And that's what you want. You got a nice bead of adhesive all the way around the outside of the frame, as I'm showing to you here. And then we can place the gasket pieces where they belong here on the frame. We'll just start here with the first one. Just like that. We've got our screw hole right there. We want to allow for our notches in the gasket sections there to allow for your screws, so pay attention to that. And you put your gasket sections back on. Okay. Number 3. And lastly, number 4. All right, kind of tuck that in there like that. Just use your fingers, kind of press in so it sits down below the edge of the metal frame here, which is how it's designed. We'll let this dry for about an hour or 2 before we put it back in the cabinet. But this is the look that you want here. You can even flip the speaker over if you like and let the speaker sit with the magnet facing up for an hour or so while it dries. When you hook up on these, make sure that your plus and minus connections are done properly in the cabinet. On the JBLs, they're marked with a red and black spring terminal, so it makes that very easy for you. And we'll let this sit up for about an hour, and we'll put it back in the cabinet, and it is ready to go.